Today we're going to be talking about a very important part of my journey to becoming a professional ballet dancer and even my journey to studying in Moscow, which is the time I spent in Florida at the Harid Conservatory. It's also kind of a hard memory for me, but I think that it's important to talk about because the road to success is not linear. So I think I speak for most dancers when I say that from a very young age, those who decide ballet is their career path already have a vision in their head of like their ideal career trajectory, like which schools they want to attend, which companies that they would like to join. The reality is that most of our journeys are so much different than the ones we imagined as students. A lot of times, I think it's really hard to come to terms with the fact that life is really unpredictable and you can't plan for everything. So this video is a little bit about my journey and how it deviated from the path that I'd imagined for myself as a student, and how ultimately, even though it was much harder and different than I had imagined it, or how I predicted it would be, I ended up exactly where I need to be. So I just like to clarify before I start talking that this video in no way is meant to show the school I'll be speaking about in any kind of negative light. This is my own personal story and my own personal opinions, experience, and I'm telling it because as hard as it was at the time, it's probably one of the most important, if not the defining experience of my ballet training. I also want to say that I'm extremely grateful for my experience at Harid, especially for my amazing teacher, without whom I 1000% would not be where I am today. I could not be more grateful. So my adventure at the Harid Conservatory actually started when I was 14. My teacher had expressed to me that if I wanted to become a professional dancer one day, I needed to leave my school in my hometown, and I needed to go look for more intense ballet training, likely at a ballet boarding school out of state. So after discussing this with my parents and my ballet teachers, we decided that the Harid Conservatory in Boca Raton, Florida would be the best choice for me, personally. The way to be accepted into the Harid school year-round was to attend their summer intensive program. So I auditioned. I had a crazy audition. I left my dance bag full of my stuff at home in my town 4 hours away. And so the day of the audition, we had to go buy all new dance things, and I had to get fitted for new point shoes and sew them before the audition. And somehow I made it. The audition went fine. And afterwards, I was told that I was accepted into the summer intensive program. After the summer intensive program, I was then told that I had been accepted into the year-round program. Okay, so I'm now going to go into a little bit of detail about the school. If that doesn't really interest you, I will put the timestamp here and you can just go there and you can skip this part. But we're gonna talk about the Harid Conservatory. Okay, so the Harid Conservatory was established in 1987. They accept students from all over the world, and the big thing about Harid that makes it different from a lot of other boarding schools for dance in America is that all students receive full tuition scholarships during the academic year. So that means that you're not paying anything more than board, food, and those kind of costs. The school costs, those are covered. So that's huge because ballet school is super expensive. Ballet itself is super expensive. So having a school that covers your whole tuition is crazy. Like, that's a game changer. That was a huge thing for me. The curriculum at Harid, there's of course ballet and all like the ballet related courses. So point, men's work, partnering, variations. Then there's also character dance, Spanish dance, modern jazz, stuff like that. We had 2 performances, so they have performances during the year. So really like a well-rounded curriculum. Really quickly, I'm just gonna talk about like the layout of the Harid Conservatory. They have their own like campus, right? Their own area. There's a pretty big courtyard, and all the buildings that you use on a day-to-day basis, they're all there. Like, you don't have to travel anywhere to do anything related to school or like just regular life. The dorm building, which also has like the dinner, the cafeteria or the dining hall or whatever they call it, is in one big building. The boys and girls wings are like separate, and there's security cameras everywhere, so you could not go in. Like, if you were a girl, you were not going in the boys' side, and vice versa, unless you had like authority, like unless they told you you could specifically, and usually there was like a supervisor there to make sure that everything was going okay. The doors were locked by key, and also there was an alarm that went off if you like opened the door without a key. So yeah, you weren't going anywhere that you weren't supposed to be going. We were staying in rooms. It was like 2 or 3 people to a room, and then on each side of the hall there was like, we had like a kitchen area, there was like a little kind of like gym workout area, and like some couches next to a TV. So kind of like a little lounge area, but like just for the boys or like just for the girls. The courtyard area was really big. It was really nice. We would like walk around out there a lot. Like right in front of the dorm building, there's the administration building, and then on the right side, there were all the ballet studios. I think there was like 3 studios or like 4 studios, maybe 3 studios. And then on the other side was like the music building, and we had other classes there too. So like kinesiology was there, and like nutrition was in there. If you wanted to go anywhere, you had to fill out a paper of where you were going, who you were going with. A supervisor would definitely have to take you there and come back, so they had to authorize it. So when I went to Harid, we still attended public school in the mornings, which is not the case anymore for students there now. They've switched to a completely online academic program, but that was my first time actually attending public high school, and I have to say that it was really different. It was kind of hard for me to fit in there. I don't think I ever really did. I don't think the kids at the high school really understood what was going on with the kids from Harid. I'm not saying everyone. There was definitely some really cool people there, but like the overall general feeling was that we were kind of outsiders. I remember a couple of things that like really stood out to me. I was like so stressed being in the school environment for the first time. First of all, there actually was a page on Facebook that I've looked for but cannot find for this video. It was called That One Hallway in Spanish River High School That No One Wants to Walk Down. And the hallway they were talking about was a hallway that like all the students from Harid would just sit there, and we would all like sit there together and do our homework. That was like our thing in the morning. That was like our hallway. And I had no idea that they all were so scared. Everyone who was walking down it like with so much anxiety. Since it was my first time in like public high school, I didn't really understand. I wasn't really like, I was such a bunhead. I didn't really know how to connect with the other kids because I was so like on my own, in my own path, like on my own journey. I remember that one time I was in biology class and I got yelled at for sewing point shoes in the back of the room because the teacher thought I was on my phone, but I was just sewing point shoes, and I was mortified. Didn't really help my street cred at school. But yeah, public high school was pretty difficult for me. So once we finished with school, we would take the Harid school bus back to the campus. Harid had like, they have like their own little short school bus. So we would all take the Harid bus back to campus, and that's when we would eat lunch, and then we would start like our ballet classes for the day. Since I was a freshman, our classes were really based in like the basics of the Vaganova ballet method. My teacher, she was a master. She knew so much about the Vaganova method, and she was really very focused on making sure we got all of the little details that are super important to build like a really strong foundation in the Vaganova technique. So if I recall correctly, it was at least a few months that we didn't get off the bar, we didn't even come into the center, because we would like spend so much time just focusing on like the position of the fingers, the position of the arms, where's your elbow. It might seem tedious, but I was living. I loved it. We had a couple of performances when I was there. So our first performance was the Nutcracker during Christmas time. I actually danced the Merleton dance as well as the flower waltz as the corps de ballet thing, but Merletons was what I was so excited to do. We were doing the Russian version, and I would just watch videos online all the time of like little kids doing it and being like, okay, Remy, if they're gonna do it that well, then you're gonna have to push it. So I was really motivated and excited to do that. Our second performance that we did was like our spring performance, and we did like excerpts from different ballets for that performance. And one of those excerpts was Swan Lake Act 3, so like the black act. It's like the castle scene with like the black swan when she comes in, and my class, we were the princesses. The prince's mother, like, I don't know, parades around in front of him so he can try and get married to one of them or something like that, but he's already in love with the swan. So it was the first time in my life that I really felt like the gravity of my performance. Like it really gave me the beginnings of performing in a much more professional way, let's say. So overall, I have to say, even though I loved it, I mean, I was so into all my classes there, I struggled a lot more than I thought I would. It was really hard. actually. Not only the technique, but also with like the limitations of my body and my physicality, which had started to become more apparent to me as I was growing. I felt like I was completely out of my comfort zone. I was away from home. I wasn't like the top of my class anymore. I remember distinctly like starting to compare myself to other people for the first time. Also like actively trying to change how my body looked. That included everything from doing crazy things to try and make my knees more hyperextended to like pushing myself to become more flexible or yeah, even thinner. It was also the first time that I really struggled with an injury. During my winter break, I went home and I took a class at home. Of course, I really wanted to show them like how much I've improved and how good I got. And I completely overdid it and I ended up with a muscle spasm in my back. It made it almost impossible for me to dance or move for months and months. And I had to sit during ballet classes and write down all the combinations and corrections. It was really hard because you're sitting there in the place that you dreamed that you would be, watching other people move forward and progress. And there was nothing I could physically do to make myself heal. I was going to different chiropractors, physical therapists. I did a bunch of different kind of rehabilitation and slowly I came back, but it really got me down. It was a huge blow to my confidence to see everyone else improving and I'm just stagnant. Like, yeah, it was the first time. Once my injury healed, coming back, I remember just having an especially hard time. I was 14 and I had not ever had to deal with the kind of pressure that I was dealing with at that time. So having actual grades for ballet and dancing progress, as well as taking school finals for the first time in my life was like really overwhelming for me. I have to say that I really felt a lot of support from the staff at Harid. If I was ever having like a hard time with like studies or even if I was like feeling homesick, they were always there if I needed someone to talk to, and I always could go and ask them for help or guidance or whatever I needed. And I'm really thankful actually for everyone who was working there when I was there, because it would have been a lot harder without them. They really helped me a lot. So during the end of the year, we all got to meet individually with our teacher. So like this was after our performances, after our finals, they would give you kind of a paper that summed up what you did well during the year, what you needed to work more on, stuff like that. So this was also the time when they would tell you if you had been reaccepted into the school or not. And I was pretty anxious. I didn't really know where I stood. I had spent a lot of time injured. I didn't feel, I think, particularly that I was doing as well as I could. The injury had been a huge setback for me, and I just didn't know if I was like up to par with what they expected from me or even like what I expected from myself. I remember I went in, my teacher sat down next to me and she handed me this paper, and on it was written, I don't remember all the things that were written specifically, but I do remember seeing physicality, and I remember seeing underneath it something like not acceptable or something like that, and it was specifically about my shoulders. There were some other things, but I was already not seeing anything. I was already crying, and my teacher was really great. She hugged me and she was really supportive. I remember just being really lost. Like I don't know if I expected to be kicked out. It was really emotional. It was my first real time kind of like facing adversity in my career choice, and it was definitely my first real rejection. And yeah, I was pretty crushed. I was lost. I hadn't really planned on leaving, so I didn't really have any kind of backup. So the silver lining, during the school year, just for myself, like just for fun, I had begun doing some research on schools in Russia, because my ultimate dream was always to attend ballet school in Russia. But I didn't think that it was actually possible for someone who's like not from Russia to study there, especially Americans. So I was just kind of doing some digging, looking around, and I ended up finding out that they do, or I mean, I guess they did, I don't know how it is now, but they definitely did accept international students into their year-round programs. And the way to get into their year-round program, one of the ways, was to attend their summer program in New York. So I kind of started forming this little dream, I don't know, know, this little plan that I was gonna go to the summer intensive in New York and just see if I got in, but I really didn't think that I would be able to get in. Like it was just a dream. I ended up auditioning for their summer program because they came to Harid for the audition, and I got in. So once I was kicked out of Harid, it kind of opened this little door in my mind, like, well, what if I just risk everything? Like, what if I just do this? What if I just go and just try to achieve my biggest dream? And I told my parents about my plan, and everyone who I told was just like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, they laughed at me, but I was serious. And after a while, especially once I had finished, the door was closed at Harid, I was like, guys, what if we just try this? Like, what if I tried? And even though there was some pushback at first, finally, we ended up being like, okay, let's do it. Let's see, like, this is your dream, go try. And yeah, I ended up going and like risking everything. I didn't have any backup. If I hadn't gotten into BOLSHOI, I don't know what I would have done. But I ended up going and I ended up getting in. So although this whole situation is one of the things, I mean, I guess you could call it one of the failures of my training. It was definitely one of the hardest moments of my training journey, but it was like the most important stepping stone in so many ways. Without having that door closed, I would not have been able to just go and try to get into school in Russia. I would not have been able to go. And without the training that I received at Harid, without my wonderful teacher, Victoria Schneider, I would not have the technique that I needed to get into the school in Russia. And yeah, I grew up really fast. I had to make this huge choice at age 15 to basically just risk everything and go follow my dreams. And I would not have been able to do that. I wouldn't even have had that choice as an option if this hasn't happened. So yeah, that's the story of probably how one of the hardest moments in my young life turned into pretty much the defining moment of my training and the reason that I am here today where I am, which is exactly where I want to be, exactly where I needed to be. So yeah. Thank you for watching. The next video I really want to make about my time studying in Russia, because that was also wild. And I don't know if I'm gonna do like maybe one video per year or just like one big video with all the years in it. I have a lot of like things to add in there, like footage and stuff like that. So if you have made it this far and have a preference, then you can just tell me in the comments and I will see you in the next video.